Welcome, everybody, to the UpLevelmen Podcast, second episode. And I'm here with Enrique, saias, also known as DJ Djingai.
Djgingai. That was super close.
That was super close. I almost got it.
Almost.
So, Enrique founded a community here in Ericeira, the ecstatic dance community. Also, you're a music producer, and you've been going in your journey here for how long here in Ericeira?
In Ericeira for about 5 years.
All right. And also, we've been having discussions about your passion towards men work and personal development in your journey. So how did you start from the beginning? Like, you're doing like music producing, you're also an activist and also in building communities. Like, how did you start in your journey, especially in your own personal development, that led you to feel inspired to create those events and create those communities and create that impact that you wanted to make?
Wow. Okay, that's going to be a long story.
Yeah.
Starting from
We're
the
ready.
beginning.
But brace yourself. We're here.
let's maybe, I'll try to give like the overview and then we can zoom in on whatever you feel is relevant.
All right.
So basically, I started my life a lot more in my feminine and not being too much in my masculine energy. I didn't feel safe on it. I didn't get maybe the male role models that I needed growing up. And so it was just more natural to me to be more sensitive, more reserved, more shy, but always in the background paying attention. So I was paying attention to everything. I wasn't really speaking up because I wasn't in that position yet. I didn't feel that I had like a coherent, framework and structure and leadership kind of quality in myself to actually share and put myself out there in that sense. So most of my life, I lived more in my feminine energy, even though it was subconscious and I didn't think about things like this like I do today. And then more or less around, it's a long story if I'm going to tell my whole life, but trying to summarize, I would say that with event production and like my entrepreneurial and independent and proactive way of inserting myself into the business world, into the marketplace, and having to fend for myself also in many ways, not just financial, but also having to build my social circle, having to build my relationships with women. So all of these things made me research a lot and the fact that I was kind of like attentive to detail, all this combination of things made me seek always, how can I improve?
Yeah.
What about me is still incomplete, still imperfect? What am I still unsatisfied about? So a lot of this insatisfaction and then, or dissatisfaction, I'm not sure in English what's the correct word. Dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Anyways, a lot of this feeling of I'm still not satisfied and like being kind of a perfectionist on it, and as long as I'm still unsatisfied, dissatisfied, whatever, I will keep trying to improve and be the best version of myself.
And that's one of the main things that comes up here, is that, like, especially for men, whenever they're starting out, and especially the way that upbringings have been happening right now in the world and in society, and I also resonate from my experience when I was very much in my feminine too at the beginning, and I was always stuck in my head, always overthinking, always indecisive, anxious, unsure about what to do, and being able to get out of that and actually step up and take ownership, take responsibility, get into that entrepreneurial path to fend for yourself and eventually build things. That requires a certain level of fire that eventually drives someone to be able to do that.
Exactly.
What was that for you?
Great that you ask. Which goes just in the continuation of exactly what I was telling you regarding the story of my path and how I got to where I am today. So at some moment, I started doing events, and this. So in specific, it's this dealing with other men that were already like embodying characteristics in themselves that I also wanted to kind of absorb from them and learn from them, because I needed those role models in order for me to be able to even know what I want and know how I want to be and who I want to become. So yeah, it was a lot of this pick and choose from the different influences in my life, and not even personal acquaintances and meetings. It was also in just watching podcasts online, for example, and following some personalities across their body of work and across the information that is available. And sometimes even reaching out and having like a one-on-one consultation with them, stuff like that.
Learning,
Yeah, but so then the fire thing that you're talking about, so all of this was still like this study of how can I absorb these things little by little, putting them to practice, still very much in an observant and kind of sidekick position. And then eventually I found out that I was going to be a father, and that changed it. That was the fire. That ignited the spark. Yeah.
I can imagine, man.
So that was the one thing that was the most responsible for it.
Yeah, I can imagine the level of leadership that comes in, of stepping up as a man, but also as a father in that role, and how that fire like comes up, and it's like, oh shit. And I don't have a kid right now, but I can imagine like how well, I don't have a kid right now. I can't imagine how that is, but I can imagine. But just from the coaching, like that is one level of leadership that comes in. But also like a kid actually feeling like having the responsibility and stepping up into that role, and to doing what, like to basically step up and create and build. Yeah, that's
a big
deep.
motivator.
Yeah, that's deep. And I believe that every person has that wake up call. You know, like each person have their own different ways that wake up call happens. Some people is going through fatherhood. Other people like have experienced different types of crisis in their life that made different changes. Some people is a breakup. Some people is like in my case, it was financial crisis in Lebanon. That was really deep, man. Like it was a phase where I had to literally, like, I couldn't even, like, my whole reality shattered.
Yeah.
You know, I was like relying on my parents all the time. As my family, everything was given to me. You know, everything was just so easy. And then out of nowhere, I had to work. I had to fend for myself. I had to step up.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, like, for you going through that, through the experience of fatherhood and having that wake up call, like, what eventually did you do to go ahead and like action based to step up?
Action based. So the first thing is like boundaries, understanding your boundaries and really setting them. That was one aspect. Another aspect was to study also parts of this balance between masculine and feminine. Because if you're just going into your masculine, it like we were talking just before, like it unbalances everything. It's like this pendulum effect where you're just gaining momentum to go to the other side.
Yeah.
So studying, for example, nonviolent communication, studying like David Data was and continues to be a great influence. So understanding things that also balance this feminine that I already had, like naturally, that I built up in myself and worked and perfected in myself throughout the biggest part of my life, and finally integrating that with this masculine that was like kind of dormant.
Yeah.
So it was also studying, for example, business, studying how as an artistic, more creator person, you can also like learn to market yourself, learn psychology, learn how people think, so you can interact with them. So there was a lot of learning, and that's actionable. You can like study and have this focus on, how can I understand people? How can I know how to negotiate? How can I know how to assert my boundaries and actually put those, like, don't fear that anymore, because now there's a bigger thing. Like now I have to become this role model. I have to be able to provide for my son. So it's like, you know, everything else becomes secondary. Those fears all of a sudden don't seem so
that big of a deal.
Offensive. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is that pendulum swim that you're talking about. It is when, for example, someone is identifying with their masculine, they're going all in, like just like and hustling all the time. They reach a point where they burn out and like panic attacks happen, health problems happen. They like they don't even recognize themselves anymore because they feel like they just like are just doing more. And it's like an engine of a car that is heating up. The engine is like, and like it's not cooling down, and it just goes and goes and goes, and eventually it's just gonna.
It's unsustainable.
It's just gonna like crumbles.
Yeah.
The engine and stop working essentially, and yeah, and also being able to. But that's where it comes in, about where the other end comes in, where someone is just chill all the time and just relax all the time, and they're always going with the flow. You know, like there's a time to go with the flow, but there's also a time to actually go ahead and do something.
Yes,
right?
And finding that balance is the artistic aspect of it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where boundaries come in too.
Also.
Because a lot of people set those, but to what you were saying, like the boundaries where, like I've seen people that would like literally set boundaries after boundaries after boundaries, and nobody want to hang out around them anymore. You know? I mean, I was that person. It doesn't feel good. You just feel like alone all the time and feel lonely. You know, it's just like, okay, like I'm setting up all of these standards, and now there's literally nobody to be around. Whereas the other side, very loose boundaries and just people pleasing after people pleasing after people pleasing. And what happens then? They get walked all over. They just always ask his people, and they never.
And you shrivel up inside because there's so much that you're like accumulating that you need to put out that is your own truth, that you're not living it.
Yeah.
And that creates like long-lasting damage inside.
It is, because what is the main thing? And I've actually heard about it from Aaron Doughty.
I don't know the.
Yeah, so he was basically talking about the idea of people pleasers, and what people pleasers do is they avoid. They want to say yes, and even though they want to say no, but they say yes because they want to avoid confrontation and they want to avoid tension because they're afraid of being abandoned, right? But the reality is that they're the people that love tension the most because they're keeping it inside. You know?
That's a good point.
It's like it's still inside. It's like whenever you're like you have that tension with someone, it's just that minute or 5 minute or conversation that you do. And then you're out of it. You don't feel about it anymore. You don't overthink it. You don't make indecisive decisions about it. But when you people please, you just keep it inside. So now what happens? Passive aggressiveness happens. Poison drinking happens. This indirect way of talking.
Because you can't really escape the tension. The most you can do is try to hide it and try to keep it just to yourself and feel that, oh, but I can manage it myself better than, or at least it's less scary for me to just manage it myself. But actually, you have to deal with it. So
and
why not be direct?
Exactly. And that's where the damage can affect relationships. Like people that you might genuinely care about, like be fully like connected with, and it just got broken, not aligned anymore because of that trauma response, kind of, where it's like it's, and now it's like a trigger, right? And now it's like, okay, I don't trust myself that I can communicate my needs, so I'm going to behave in this passive aggressive way that is going to come up as a trigger to someone else, and then that person is going to feel like, what, where did that come from? What just happened? Like maybe I didn't really thought about our friendship, that it was actually the way that I thought it was, and then it breaks it. And and that's the thing, like that's about friendships. It's like a lot of people talk about having friends and stuff, but how many people actually do have true friends? You know?
Yeah, it's rare to have more than a handful of them.
Yeah. And that's where like
today, I believe in the past it wasn't like this because we're so separated now. Like you can just live with your screen and be super lonely but super immersed in this sub-reality, and you can just escape through just the comfort of, okay, I can entertain myself, I can listen to podcasts and pretend that I have company, pretend like I can get my stimulation in this lazy, passive way.
When you watch that, make sure to not do that. Make sure to not do it passively. So, yeah, and even more so, like, where does someone has a space where they can fully feel safe emotionally? Where, like, how rare is that?
Yeah.
Like now in this day and age, like, most people never have that. They dissociate from reality and they stay stuck for years in a fantasy, and never really feel truly safe about feeling their emotions.
Because it's something you need to kind of create for yourself. Or someone can create it for you, but then you're just hoping for it to be created for you. It could happen, it could not.
Yeah.
So you should take, like, power with your own hands and try to make it happen by establishing, your bros.
Yeah.
Having a friend circle of men that share also men's struggles, can relate to men's struggles.
Yeah.
And it can also happen with women, even though I don't believe that it's as powerful. Like, sharing your sensitivity or vulnerability with women, I think there's no problem in doing it. But I think with men, with men that you trust, you find a different listening ear that kind of can actually comprehend, can actually relate.
Exactly. That's
to what you're going through.
Yeah, and there's men's groups. These men's groups that tends to actually make that change, because, like, I believe that if there's women involved, women are gonna see it from a different perspective.
Exactly.
And it's very valuable.
Also,
right?
Yes.
But relying on that, it's coming from a woman's perspective where you gotta, like, relax, like nurture. Like, that's the innate nature of most women, is just to feel more love, relax, like, feel like you're calming down the nervous system. And sometimes with guys, they actually need to be comfortable with having their nervous system be comfortable in tension, in commitment and consistency, and actually showing up, and then also, like, relaxing and hearing to what you're saying, like the way that other men actually listen to that. It shows a different perspective that is more relatable.
Yes.
For guys, like,
it's much more of a mirror. Women can kind of receive you and comfort you, but I mean, of course, this is a generalization. I don't want to come off as like women are this, men are that.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm generalizing. There are many different types of women and men. There are many different types of relationships between women and men, between men and men, and between women and women. So this is obviously generalization. But from my experience, it holds true. And it's like, men that you trust are actually men that can keep that secret safe, that can even, like, it strengthens the bond between the two of you if you can actually come to this level of sharing vulnerability. Whilst between men and women, I don't feel that it strengthens the bond. I feel that something is a bit lost. Like, your women's idea of you,
I see that,
is a bit, something is lost there.
Yeah.
The more that you kind of complain or sob or, because sometimes we need to let it out somehow. And
I see that. And it's that holding space, right? Like, I believe us men were more durable to hold space. Yeah. And I'm generalizing here. But most cases, from my experience, is like, we're more built to calm down our nervous system and actually, like, be holding space for each other, especially with all the uncertainties that happen in life all the time. Imagine having everything to deal with by yourself all the time. No support, nothing, no accountability, no group. I mean, I've been through that, and it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I was in a stage before that I couldn't trust anyone. And if I was not in control of everything, I can't feel safe. I was in a state that I trust no one, fuck everyone, and the only way I can feel safe is if I'm literally, like, in control of every conversation, every time I walk into a room, every time I'm in a certain dynamic and relationship, I need to be in control. And it reached a point where, like, how am I going to live? It's just so overwhelming to be able to be in control of everything. There's no way. Like, there's just so much that happens over and over and over again. That's why, like, being in a group, in that community, just makes life so much easier.
It's not how we evolved, men and women also. I mean, I'm going to stop with the men and women, but humans have evolved in a situation which is, for most of our evolutionary past, tribal. So we would have these support groups. We did trust each other. Our survival depended on our coherence as a group. And now we live in a context where it's like each one for themselves, super individualistic and very competitive, which is not how we grew up evolutionarily, how our brain got hardwired.
But why did that happen? I believe to a point that you were talking about earlier, which is the communication. That's why that's I personally believe, and would love to hear your take on it, is why now is it not like this? Why now is it more separated? Why most people are more separated? Because most people don't understand each other anymore. Like, it's like a language that is not, like, it's not there for the general population, not for everybody. A lot of people right now are waking up, which is incredible and it's great. But if we're looking at the vast majority of the world right now, like the main, like the whole population, the separation is coming due to the lack of understanding to each other and communication.
Yeah, I think it's a huge topic. I think communication is one big part of it. But I think also, if I were to put my finger on what I think is the most fundamental thing, is actually self-knowledge and self-actualization. So we're at like this crisis of meaning. And who are we in the world? Like, how do we belong here? Because it can be overwhelming. The world is huge. Capitalism has a huge power. The structures that are put in place have a huge power in terms of like the institutions that exist, how society is organized. And it can be very easy to feel so helpless. And like, in the sense of like, it doesn't matter what I do. I'm just one person. So I can just do whatever I want. I'm nihilistic as long as it's like, as long as it's pleasurable for me, as long as it's comfortable for me, then I don't have to give explanations. I don't have to give satisfactions. And I think that creates this bubble where we feel ourselves isolated, because I don't need to be friends with my men's group to go and hunt and to go and survive and to, get the pelts that we need for warmth, otherwise we freeze. All of these things that before we needed each other. Now we don't need. If you have money, you can go to the supermarket, you can buy a massage therapist to give you a massage, you can go even to hookers, to escorts. Like, you don't need anything if you have... This is obviously oversimplification, but you get my point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And on top of that, what tends to happen is when we actually are in a state where we don't need each other, then now it's like a different type of perspective to look at.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, we're in a society now that it's not about that anymore. It's about we choose to be with each other. We don't need to be with each other. Like, we can survive without each other, but we choose to be with each other because it's more fulfilling.
Exactly.
And you've mentioned this earlier. I wanted to talk to talk about it now, which is, you mentioned the levels between it was like different levels that you were mentioning about. We talked about it.
The David data, the three stages.
Yes, exactly. The 3 stages. Yeah. Can you go over that again?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So David Data is this incredible lecturer, philosopher, psychologist, therapist, coach. Like, he's a guy that basically wrote a lot of books, spoke in a lot of lectures, and counseled and had therapy with a lot of couples and individual people and etc. And he built, or I don't know how far is his original work, or like is copied from others, or is referenced from other, ideologies and stuff like that. But what you get from his work is basically structures to make sense of life. of your own behavior, of other people's behavior. And so he talks about masculine and feminine and defines very clearly what each one of them is. And then, yeah, he gives these frameworks. And one of them is, for example, the 3 stages that you want me to explain. So there are 3 stages at any given moment that we are in. If I'm in a moment where I am hungry, for example, and I'm trying to get some food for myself because I need food, I'm in a first stage moment, which there's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. Has its good sides, has its bad sides. It's just is what it is. I'm just making sure that you understand that there's no judgment on this. It's just like it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So the first stage is I have needs. So I need to satisfy my needs. The second stage is when you understand that you have needs, but the other person also has needs. And therefore, let's talk, let's understand each other, let's come to an agreement, let's make a contract, let's collaborate. So that's the second stage. And then the beauty of it is that I believe most people think that the second stage is, the peak. You've reached the summit. You already have this understanding that there is the need to collaborate and do things together and not just be selfish. But actually, it's not according to David Data and also according to my experience and many people's experience, because there is a third stage. And the third stage is no longer about my needs and no longer about our needs. Now it's not about needs anymore. It's about just, it's hard to explain, but basically it's like surrendering your body as a vessel for just whatever comes, whatever is authentic flows. You allow it to flow because it's not even you anymore. It's the universe expressing itself through you. So I know it can sound like spiritual, new age, shanti shit, but
Woo-woo.
I'm not sure if I can say this word, but woo-woo, exactly. But so the idea is that in the first stage, you're in your needs. Second stage, you understand the need for collaboration. But in the third stage, what you understand is that everything is just change. So my needs, your needs, everything that I love, everything that I've built, everything that I know will one day disappear. Yeah. So in the third stage, you're not tapping into this kind of, not too wide sense of time. You're tapping into the eternal sense of time, where you're not doing things because you have this goal in mind and because you want to collaborate, because you want to be this or that in social terms and stuff like that. You're actually just allowing yourself to be a vessel through which the universe expresses itself. So
what you're saying is allowing for life to run its natural course
unimpeded
into the nothingness from which it came from. Where those changes, whether it's good or bad, it's going to go back to nothingness. It's going to be something else.
Yeah.
And everything. The relationship, the dynamic, the polarity.
Yeah.
It's going to...
So what this creates is that you're not clinging to anything because you know that everything will disappear one day.
Yeah.
So the third stage person is always giving and letting go, giving and letting go, giving and letting go, not being attached to what he gives, not being attached to if what he gives is received or not. It may not be received. You will still give it because you are here to offer fully your potential, to the world.
That sounds like wow, that sounds great. But when you're talking like on the actuality of it, of becoming that person,
let's get into
experiencing that. What kind of paradigm is that?
So the easiest way to understand, I think, is when you think about this balance between masculine and feminine. So the first stage is unbalanced purely. In the case of masculine, for example, it would be just, I want to make some money for myself, to have a luxury lifestyle, to have power for me. The second stage would be, you have your masculine, I want to make some money for myself, but also to give to the community, to support like the people that I love and my family and all of that. So that's like a second stage where you actually balance that masculine desire and capacity to make money, to assert myself in the world. You balance that with the feminine sensitivity and wanting to nurture. So they're balanced, masculine and feminine. But then the third stage is transcending beyond balance. It's you can tap into your masculine and you can tap into your feminine because it's whatever flows. It's whatever creates, whatever feels more authentic. Because we all have both masculine and feminine. Doesn't matter if we're man or woman or trans or any other different thing that you can invent.
And the thing is that about having that masculine and feminine, that's a really key topic, I believe, especially when it comes to the polarity of how traditional families has been built and how masculine and feminine dynamics has been developing right now in self-actualization and people going to personal development and spirituality and how that is actually manifesting. And as to also what you mentioned, which is to feel whatever feels authentic to you. I do believe that sometimes can be a rabbit hole where authenticity can be, where there can be like a pattern or a trauma bond or a behavior that can be explained as authenticity, where in reality it's a blind spot. It needs to be seen. And that's where I believe a lot of quote unquote, like the term is spiritual bypassing that happens, where it constantly leads someone to self-actualize, become more aware, get into their masculine, get into their feminine, feel whatever is natural and authentic to them. And it is, on the absolute level, it's true. Like, feel whatever it's authentic to you.
Yes.
It's true. But sometimes there's so many layers. There's so many layers that we don't even know what's true anymore. So now it's like, it's about being able to, the realization that I came from that is, well, the only way to see what is true is to choose what true to believe. What is the truth that I want to believe and that I want to live in?
What would make life more beautiful given all these different options that I have in front of me?
Yeah.
So you get to choose, you get to manifest your reality. That's an awesome thing.
Yeah. And at the same time, you realize that it's like, whoa, like all of these layers that needs to be let out to be able to create that reality that we might think that it's real, but in reality, it's just a pattern that feels euphoric and feels good, and we kind of like always fall back into and feel safety and security and comfort in. And getting out of that, going into an unknown space where we don't know how that's going to look like, who we can become.
Yeah, because that's the first thing, right? For you to actually have a clear like beacon, you need to know what is it that you want. And that's the first question a man should ask himself and find the answer to.
Yeah.
What would really fulfill me? What is my purpose? Who am I? This is who am I is the masculine question.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Purpose and clarity. And I do believe that having like when each person walk the walk that they want to live in their life, and they set that example, even without actively helping people, and they're just living life, that alone is just setting an example for people to look at and a reference to show how life can be, like what good is, like to reference like what good even is. Because a lot of people, what tends to happen is they might think that this is good in their life and they're feeling really good. But there might be a completely different paradigm that feels incredible.
And for sure there must be.
Yeah.
Because it's infinite. The possibilities are infinite.
Yeah, and it for sure is, and it is infinite. But if there's no reference point to look at it and see that, it's not impossible. It is possible to find it, but it's just much easier to see
because
that.
it lives within you also. If you quiet the mind, if you do your daily practice, your meditation, you can just, there's so much wisdom inside of us that if we just shut up and listen, we will receive it.
Oh, yeah.
So even without like a role model, a reference, those things are possible, I believe.
Yeah.
But still, I agree that everything, all of this is very relative always. It's not so absolute. It's always relative to our goals,
Yeah, and practicing getting into authenticity and like meditation definitely is a big factor. But to what extent is meditation and action the sweet spot? Like because I've seen people that just meditate all day and they don't do shit. They just meditate all day and they do nothing, and then they might feel present, but then at the same time I've seen people that are struggling financially, that leads them to like these are triggers that comes up, and they might feel like, I'm gonna release and feel safety, but they never really take action, and they justify spirituality as an escape to taking action. Whereas on the other side, what tends to happen is that they go ahead and they take action, and we go back to the same one, which the over masculinized like entrepreneur that burns out. Because that person, like doing the practice and like elevating and getting all of that wisdom and tapping into a space, I believe that it has its place, but I believe that doing that alone without action can be like a huge trap.
it's again the balance. Always the need to find the balance.
Yeah, and but that balance can be like very misunderstood, because a lot of people believe that, like, let's say like balance is like everything in moderation, so they're always halfway in, halfway out in things.
Not necessarily, but I think it's a good starting point.
It's better than nothing, of course. It's better than nothing, of course. But of course, it's not necessarily the case. The ideal situation, I believe, and would like to hear your take on it, is that when someone is in balance, they're still all in into what they're doing. Like, let's say you're going to recover. You're recovering, you're practicing your self-love, you're doing the meditation, you're all in on it. And then you're working, you're taking action, you're doing it, you're building your purpose, you're all in on it. You're not halfway in, halfway out. Half your attention, your energy's leaking and it's draining somewhere, and you're not there. Whereas, most people don't. Most people stay stuck into this halfway in, halfway out, which is better than nothing, but it's not what. But it's what most people tend to want is actually get the commitment to building something and the purpose that they would want to create. And what's your take on that? Would you say between that?
Can you maybe summarize a bit more? Make it a bit more clear for me.
Yeah. So essentially, let's say someone want to build something, and they want to create something, and they want to go ahead and do it. Like, actually, building, it doesn't necessarily mean like a purpose or a business or like a community. It can also be in a relationship, right? But then there's the balance, right? Getting into balance. What would you say someone needs to do or feel to have that balance?
So it's very much a matter of perspective, in my opinion. It's a matter of having the correct filter to look at what's going on and to feel yourself and to feel others and to be able to make judgments from that, which are impartial and as impartial as possible.
Okay.
And have your inner compass well-tuned to guide you.
Mm.
So I think that's the core. Meditation is a great way to help with that.
Yeah.
If you just sit in, silence, in darkness, not even with your own thoughts, but just with your own being, a lot will come up.
Yeah.
Like effortlessly, will just come up.
Yeah.
And so meditation is a way for us to receive messages from our subconscious and from how, like, if you pay conscious attention to your breathing, to like how your body is feeling, it's a matter of, that's why I say also perspective, because it's where you put your attention on, where do you focus? That's the big key.
Yeah.
To understand where am I now, where do I want to go, to readjust, to make, those moment by moment adjustments where we need to, we have a goal in mind, we need to readjust because you can't just walk looking to the ground, looking to your next step. You also have to lift up your head every once in a while, maybe look back every once in a while and see, get this 360-degree view.
Mm-hmm.
So putting your focus on the things that matter, putting your focus on your body's wisdom that tells you in its own language that we need to learn to interpret it throughout life, the body's language, because it tells us it's this portal to what's subconscious, super deep inside of us that the mind does not have access to.
Yeah, exactly. The feeling, those sensations that tends to have all of that knowledge and database. It's like there's these thoughts, and then there's the emotions.
Exactly,
and then there's
and really feeling those emotions, allowing them to come. Like, probably if there's not a bad emotion related to not having built the thing that you want to build, you probably won't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be very motivated by good emotions that will make you do it, but in the end, if you're struggling to make something happen, eventually you will feel bad about not doing what you want to be doing. So if you sit with that emotion, with no distractions, without picking up the newspaper, without thinking, without rationalizing, without making up excuses, you just sit down with the discomfort of, I am not who I want to be yet.
Yeah.
And you don't, you're not satisfied with it. So you will do it until that changes. Yeah. Make sure that changes.
Yeah. And
if you do it as a regular practice, sitting down with yourself in silence, letting the discomforts arise and not judging them, being an outside observer of what it is, being impartial, and
there's always going to be struggles,
of course,
right? No matter what.
Yeah, that's like the guy said from the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
Oh yeah.
The core of the book is basically like, you don't want a life without struggles. You just want to choose the struggles that you want to be dealing with. You want to choose problems that you are, that are your purpose.
Yeah,
aligned with your purpose.
Because everything is hard, like that's like the perspective that someone can look at. But I believe that like being fat is hard, and having a six-pack is hard. Being broke is hard. Making millions is hard. Being alone is hard. Being around friends and loved ones is hard. Being with no family is hard. Being with family is hard.
True.
Being single is hard. Being married is hard. Being in the everything is hard, But I believe that was like a poem that I don't remember who wrote it, but it drags down for like 15, 20, 25 lines like this, all the way down. And to be honest, I don't believe that hard is the word. It's more its commitment.
Commitment?
Yeah. Because even if the example of being fat is hard and having a six-pack is hard.
Yeah.
That's commitment. You either commit to being fat, or you either commit to having six-pack.
Yeah, you either commit to having the pleasure of the food that you eat and the lack of discipline in your diet and your exercise and whatever, which is like the good side where you can just enjoy and be comfortable. But also the bad side of then you're going to be judged. People are not maybe, because people judge on appearances. Like that's just how humans are. On a very surface level, that's the snap judgment that we make. So dealing with that bad side, but accepting the good side, the comfortable side, or dealing with the bad side of I have to be disciplined, I have to do what I don't feel like doing, but then I get the good side of people respect me, women find me hot, like all of those things that I also want. So there's good and bad in both, and more often than not, we choose the lazy path.
Yeah, and we do choose the lazy path, and
because
sorry, no worries.
Because because of what we search for, again, it's this goal that is the perspective that when you change the perspective, reality changes. If your goal is to be comfortable, to feel pleasure, and to live in this bubble of basically safety and comfort, you're playing not to lose, instead of playing to win. If your goal is that, then probably you will just eat the junk food and not work out. But if your goal is to feel proud of yourself, that's a totally different goal. And you're not prioritizing pleasure. Sometimes you'll be actually prioritizing pain and ice bath immersions and discomfort and that's going to bring fulfillment in ways that pleasure could never bring you. So it's this prioritizing, choosing the goal that is going to serve me and the world and everything, instead of just this pleasure mindset, which is what we think is widespreadly like we should be happy and
that we'll get to that in a second, like about the mindset of we should be happy and the positive like culture right now, like just like always, instead of the real culture, it's like the positive culture. But before getting into that, I just wanted to like imagine like how would life look like if everybody made a decision to play to win instead of playing not to lose.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that.
Like everybody that I know, like, I mean, have that. And the people that work on themselves, they get out of that mindset and they do, including me. Like many times, even me, I had that mindset. Okay, how can I make a decision without losing? And then I always constantly like, okay, no, but it's not about not losing. It's about playing to win and actually getting what you want. Yeah. And how many people out there just go and play not to lose? Everybody play not to lose. Everybody want to stay safe and not change and stay comfortable.
Yeah. I think, again, it's part of our evolutionary, hardwiring. Because if you're excluded from the tribe, all of a sudden you're alone and you're just going to die. You're not going to survive.
True.
So you need that approval. You need to fit in. Like, it's hardwired in us. It's unavoidable.
And our development is to transcend that.
Yes.
To get to unwire those survival wires and be able to become a being that just transcend and elevate paradigm in a different concept.
Yeah.
And to what you're saying about the positive like culture of like being happy all the time, like that was just funny. It's just like I just like remember like imagine like someone just like, okay, personal development, we're just gonna go, like we're just gonna be positive. I'm gonna put the positive affirmation, like I am happy, I am doing well, I am loved, and then like your subconscious is like not like that at all.
Yeah.
And then you feel what's the word for it?
It's the imposter syndrome. I don't know.
Yeah, imposter syndrome, or you feel like, oh no, you're not. No, you're not happy. You're not loved. All of that.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It was just like funny to hear that. There was like no.
But I think that is actually a very deep and true spiritual, insight, which is that all we want is to be happy. All that we want is to feel good inside. And so many times we project what we want and we complexify it and we specify it, but actually what we want is just to feel good inside. And I think that's also a really useful thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Feel good inside.
Yeah. All that we want is to feel good inside. And we think that by eating that junk food, we will feel good inside. But actually it's giving us a little bit of pleasure, but then the guilt and the sluggishness and the snowball effect of then I did that, so then I'm just gonna watch the game, and then I watched the game, now I'm sluggish, so I'm just gonna smoke a joint, instead of the opposite. Like when you do something that you're proud of, when you wake up and Jordan Peterson style, you wake up, you make your bed, that creates this positive feedback loop where, okay, since I did this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my morning routine.
Yeah.
Instead of just, being on that immediate pleasure thing, if we focus instead of what can I do now that would make me feel proud of myself, that actually brings that happiness, that feeling good inside.
Yeah.
Much more than the pleasure.
Yeah. And being consistent, I believe, makes it really good. The feeling.
The feeling of consistency.
It's a consistency, man. That feeling is good. Like you feel like you
feels like money in the bank.
Yeah, money in the bank. Literally, it feels like money in the bank. You feel like you can trust your word over and over and over again. And then you feel like your word is, that your word is true. Like you create. Because we are reality creative machine.
That's what brings the confidence. Is when you get undeniable proof from reality that you are dependable, you are stable, you are capable. It's not the positive affirmations.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Wow. Boom. That's it. Literally. Man. It's basically calling out the fact of someone's words and action, if they're aligning or not.
Exactly.
And if they're aligning, confidence will come up. If they're not aligning, they're not going to feel confident. But honestly, to also explore that idea, they're going to feel confident. But they're going to feel confident about not feeling confident about themselves. Because they have so much reference, Bruce.
Yeah.
You become confident all the time.
You're super confident that you're not confident.
But you're not confident.
Yeah.
Right? It's I'm beating myself up. I'm worth this. I'm not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you have the best arguments.
Yeah.
They have to have the best arguments as to why you're not confident.
Yeah.
And then it's someone who's confident has the best arguments usually. Has the best explanations, and he's very certain that he's gonna he believes that, so he just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and so bringing that back to the actionable aspect.
Yeah.
You can do the meditation and sit half an hour every day with the feeling of, fuck, I'm not confident. I'm not being able to be this confident man that I want to be. I see it in others. I also want to embody it, but I can't. I don't know how to, etc.
Yeah.
You can do the meditation, but then the more actionable part still is, what's the baby step that I can take that will give me some feedback that, I was capable. I was able to do this. And then, little by little, by getting these small feedbacks from the world that you are doing something, you are valuable, you are needed, then you build it up slowly.
Yeah. And that also comes down to attraction and dating for men, I believe. Yeah. Because I've done dating coaching before when I started my own coaching business before doing men's work. And the biggest thing that I look at in the coaching space is that guys believe that there's going to be a certain technique or there's going to be a certain strategy that is going to get the girl. It's going to attract her. But what happens? Coming back to the affirmation and the consistency and the confidence, when your words and actions don't align, it's sketchy. It's sketchy. It's
fishy. We feel it.
Yeah.
Everyone around you feels it. Women feel it even more.
Yeah. And how much do women feel more than men? that much more than men. Like we feel this much, women feel like that much. It's like an antenna that has like so many wires. Like she feels everything.
Yeah.
Again,
the evolutionary path. They had to be hardwired to like, is this guy for real or no? And they test us, and they proactively go and talk shit and say things to challenge you to see how you will respond. It's not even conscious, I think.
Yeah. But that specifically, I would say that comes in when someone actually, like the testing part that comes in is coming when when she trusted the first time from a guy and she got let down by that and she got heartbroken, or she felt that there's inconsistency that she can't rely, and now she had to feel like now she needs to trust and she needs to test it and go ahead and do it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because
which is basically every woman that's not a virgin.
Yeah, basically.
So it's almost all of them.
Basically, that's the reality of the world that we're living in right now, and
which is kind of nice, actually.
And now it filters to actually motivates. Not only
we
motivates.
love a challenge. We want to be challenged. It also reflects to ourselves. We can also like use that opportunity to feel into how did I react? What could have I done better? And all of that.
Exactly, to actually improve and be accountable and step up.
Yeah. And not be such a sissy, like, oh, you tested me, like you need to, be in your feminine and follow my lead. Not always. Like,
don't be a bitch.
You're also here to mirror to me. Yeah. Your woman is the person that knows your insecurities better than you do.
Yeah.
So,
So don't be a bitch. Step up. If you're gonna take one thing from the podcast, don't be a bitch. Elevate your consciousness, but don't do it from a wounded masculine. Do it from a place of consistency, where your words and actions are aligning, feeling the sense of confidence, where you can actually step up,
and not even putting that judgment on the whole of you and all your identities. Like, in this moment, I was a bitch. And you can just step outside, look at it, and,
Yeah. And
it's not like you're undeserving because you had a bad moment.
Yeah. Ironically, when you own it up, you're not a bitch anymore. Ironically, when you say, in that moment, I was a bitch.
If it's heartfelt, if it's authentic.
If it's real. Yeah.
Then yes.
Not like, not meant, because so many people just go and say the right things. But do you mean them? Do you really mean it? That's the biggest question that comes up, where, well, it's not a question, it's like an observation where that happens all the time, where saying the right things doesn't mean you actually mean it and you heartfelt it and it's real.
Yeah, because the verbal conversation that's happening is just one of the conversations that are happening. There's also an energetic conversation happening at the same time. So
energy is everything.
We can use the verbal to manipulate and to, convey a certain image of ourselves. But
it's always going to be...
There's always an underlying energetic communication happening, conversation happening that is, I think, even more important. Depends on the context. Like if you're discussing maybe engineering plans to make something, to build a machine, then the energetic conversation doesn't matter. And what matters is the logical. But if you're in a social interaction with someone, either with, a friend or a rival or a woman, like, then the energetic conversation matters more most of the time.
Yeah, and even in the coaching too. You can
And it's a mistake men make a lot. Just focusing on the verbal communication. Like, you're talking with a girl, for example, and you're just paying attention to what she's saying, to the words that she's saying. But that's
doesn't
not
mean anything.
It's not that it doesn't mean anything, in my opinion. It's simply that that's not the most important conversation that's taking place. So your focus is on the wrong place.
I believe that's like 5% of communication. Like the 90% is the energy that comes up, if not more, 95.
Yeah.
But to what you're saying, it's correct, because it is the feeling that comes in, because sometimes in the relationship, many times, the girlfriend is gonna be like, oh, I'm dealing with this and I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this and this and this, and I'm feeling all of the overwhelm, and then like, just, hey babe, chill. It's good. And then like the actual presence of the chill is not a chill of like, it's not a chill of shut up and repress your emotions.
Yeah.
It's a chill of I
still
see
love
you, I see you, I heard you, and I love you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you know, nervous system down, like
Absolutely.
relax.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one can be also like, hey babe, chill, shut up or I kill you. You know, like that kind of
Just like I don't want to hear it.
yeah,
Yeah.
dismissive, avoidant. I don't have
Yeah.
time for you. You're just being annoying right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the like I hear you, but I don't see you, and I don't love you.
Yeah. And being present is love. You know, like being present and actually just being the person there. It is love. You know, when energy's leaking, and that's like love kind of like leaking. You know, it's like a love bucket and it's just leaking away.
Yeah.
And there's the other one is just like, all right, here's my love bucket. Here you go. Love bucket.
Love bucket.
We're the love bucket right now. You want more love bucket? Bring love bucket. It's time for more love bucket. But yeah, so that's the main thing. Like experiencing, being present, self-love, and the energy. Energy speaks miles away, not the words. And safety and consistency and action is what leads people to feel more good in their body, without the need to do anything about it, and like trying to in the sense of like dissociating from reality, or trying to overthink. Maybe not trying to do anything can be miscommunicated for taking action, which is good. But essentially what I'm trying to say is feeling safe in the emotions of being real and authentic that comes up.
Yeah, it takes confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes security. You need to already have this security, because otherwise it's too much of a threat. You can't fathom this vulnerability of yours to be put out there for others to do what they please with it. Like, if you're not secure already, if you don't feel like you have a circle of people that will stand by you, if you don't feel like your values are aligned and therefore like your conscience is clear because your ethics are in the right place, all of those things need to be in place for you to actually be able to expose yourself and feel that safety.
Feeling the safety. So if you're feeling the need to feel safe right now, time to take a deep breath. Inhale all the way in and exhale all the way out, cooling the nervous system down, feeling the realness, the authenticity. Whatever it is that you want to feel. You feel like you want to run, you want to jump, you want to like feel like there's grief, there's pain, there's love. Whatever it is, make sure to feel it and step up and make sure to align your words and your actions. Enrique, is there any last words you'd like to share?
That's, I don't know. So many, I don't know. One
Yeah.
specific right now. No. Just like, yeah, it's an honor. Thank you very much for having me. And it's always a pleasure to have these conversations on the one hand and to actually speak with a resonating soul. So thanks, man.
Awesome, brother. Glad to have you, man. Oh! Men's group, men's circle, feeling safe inside. Step up, masculinity, energy, no wounded masculine energy, no feminine energy, balance. Don't mistake it with being average and just moderation and being halfway in, halfway out. Go all in. So if you want to cut it and actually have the highlights, just like boom, 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 and then you want to watch it deeply, that's what you need to do right now. So this is the second episode of UpLevelmen with Enrique. The description of all on the podcast, on the link, is gonna be it's gonna be like for the school community The link is going to be in the description. For if you want to join our community, make sure to actually click the link down below, and we'll see you inside. It's going to be a men's group. We're going to feel more like brothers. Like this is a brother. This is a brotherly community where you can share everything and feel the safety inside of you. And yeah, I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.